Hi, I'm Rick. Welcome to Elbow Shots. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pattern for an irregular shaped countertop. Let's take a look. First I'm going to use a couple of carpet scraps turned upside down to slide the stove out of the way. Sometimes I encounter challenges like handling large sheets or being precise with my cuts so I have enough material for the other parts. Sometimes the challenge is that the top is such an irregular shape that it's hard to determine layout lines or angles. If you're wondering, how am I going to cut that out? I'll show you what has worked for me. You could make an educated guess and maybe cut your material a little bigger to provide for a larger margin of error, but the easiest way to get a precision cutout is to make a pattern and transfer it to your sheet laminate. The principles of patterning that I'm going to share with you today I learned when we were doing a lot of coved vinyl installations back in the 80s. When I built this house in 1989, I installed coved vinyl in the kitchen and laundry. Later, I replaced the kitchen and the carpet areas with hardwood, but left the laundry room floor. We would use 6-foot wide rolls of patterning felt for the floors, but we didn't cut the felt to the exact dimensions of the floor. Instead, we would use grid lines and key marks. We would make a flexible key in the shape of a steel square out of the vinyl to be installed because we were bending the flooring and reaching around trim, so we needed a tool that would comply with those needs. We're just going to use a flat steel square today. The first mark is to locate our control line. In this case, I used the grout line imprinted in the vinyl flooring. And we would cut a cat's eye opening in the patterning material and secure it to the floor with tape so it wouldn't shift while we made our marks. Once we make all our key marks, we can transfer our pattern to the material to be installed. So how do we apply these principles to a countertop? I'll show you. Using cardboard left behind by the flooring installers with a speed square and a framing square, I cut a 45-degree angle for our basic shape. These cardboard pieces are not as big as the countertops I need to cut out, but I can project lines infinitely into space, though I usually measure projections in terms of inches. To find our control line, let's see if our front edge is parallel with the back wall. It looks like there's about an 1/8 to 3/16 difference, so I'm going to adjust the front edge of my cardboard to be parallel with the front edge of the countertop, call that my control line, and fit the pattern to the walls. With the control line established, I now have a reference line from which to work. One way to make a pattern is to fit the pattern to the walls and trace that directly to the sheet. To fit this piece to the wall, I used a speed square as a block to mark a line that follows the contours of the walls. As you can see, the wall has a bit of a bulge in the middle, so I'll have to cut my line in segments and shift the straight edge as I go. When scribing to a straight wall and an angled wall at the same time, remember the distance to travel is different. Here I used the speed square to mark them both the same and ended up short on the angled wall. I can correct that by scribing the back wall with a pen and retrimming. Now that I have a pattern of the back wall, I can determine my other points of reference. Projecting a line from the back shows that it does not line up with the front apex, so using a framing square, I put a mark along the control line where it does line up. I place my key against the wall with a 1/2 inch overhang, which determines the front corner, and trace the outline of the key. Likewise, for the other corner, I place the key against the wall with a 1/2 inch overhang and trace the outline of the key. This locates the back right corner of the piece. Now I cut a couple of cat's eyes opening in the patterning material, which you'll see me use to secure the pattern to the laminate sheet with blue tape. There's no right or wrong way to make key marks. Use the key as a reference to help you visualize the finished product so you can transfer that image to the sheet. Mark it in the way that makes sense to you so you understand it. Make sure you get all the critical points marked before you move the pattern. I usually like to make my cutouts so the balance pieces are as big and usable as possible. I was able to get a length of backsplash off of this sheet before patterning the decks. Keeping your control lines parallel and perpendicular to your sheet will give you more points of reference and leave you with more usable balances. Measuring from the factory edge to the control line, I secure the pattern to the sheet. With this pattern, we fitted it to the wall, so I used my reference points to mark out the front and trace the wall edges of the pattern directly to the sheet. This other deck has that little corner that extends beyond the edge of the sheet, so we'll measure from the edge that extra bit, in this case it's 1 inch, and shift the pattern. With the back edge determined, I can measure to the front edge, which is the depth of the countertop plus a 1/2 inch overhang. I used the laminate slitter set at 1 inch and a pair of shears to cut off that back strip. Okay, let's see how we did. So far it looks pretty good. We can remove our pattern now. And we didn't make a direct trace pattern of this deck, and the backsplash will be laminate without trim. So I want to get a little bit closer. Making sure the overhangs are about the same all the way around. I can scribe in the deck a little closer. And then after trimming, there's still going to be some permanent ink marks that remain. You can use rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer or your favorite solvent to clean them off before you glue your piece in place. By making a direct trace pattern of these walls, I got pretty close, but my backsplash will be a piece of laminate without trim, so I want to get closer. Tile backsplash would easily cover that the way it is. After fitting it close to the wall, I didn't leave myself much for overhang, but any overhang is enough. It may not be comfortable, but if there's any overhang, it's enough. When you think about it, these principles of patterning can be applied anytime you want to transform a regular shape into an irregular shape. I hope you find this video helpful. Thank you for sharing and subscribing.